Asket's Explanations, Part 6. Translation Personal Explanation from the 14th of September, 1964, Marauli, India.
Asket still provided many further explanations, which, however, one is not permitted to mention. They deal exclusively with past events, the significance of which must be kept secret into the distant future. How these connections affect the future was explained to me, and I am therefore orientated about it, even if not in all the details. But it became clear to me, after Asket's explanations, that very many events of the past are very important for the future still to come, and for that reason their course is not allowed to be influenced by the revealing of facts through which certain matters within the events could be negatively changed. My own reason tells me that my silence was justifiably required, and that I must hold to that in the interest of all humans. On the other hand, I also have no right at all to want to play do-gooder, or someone who wants to change the world, in order to change events for better or worse, by means of some sort of intervention, as a result of my acquired knowledge. I must hold to that, as it relates to the world and the humans, exactly as I do, as it relates to my own life, which, with very many events, I know in advance. I can also not change this, because I know that very evil times will come for me, and I will have to withstand all sorts of miserable things. I know that these coming events must happen and I must go through them, that I must overcome them, and that I may not simply avoid them, because I now know that these events hasten towards me at determined times and will bring me pain, suffering and need as well as hate and slander. That which must occur must not be changed because otherwise the required course of evolution would be disturbed. For that reason, it is a rational duty, in respect of all creational laws, to never influence the future counter to its determination, when a human knows this future. In the course of the years of my life it has, however, also become completely clear to me that it is not good for the human when he knows his future. If he knows his future, then, in his egoism, he moves in the direction of wanting to influence the future in accordance with his own will, and thereby creates enormous unhappiness. This is because he wants to avoid certain coming events which will bring him suffering or need and so forth. I had to learn from my own experience that the human succumbs to very evil conflict with himself if he knows his own future. It is especially the case if he becomes aware of negative things in his future. Out of egoism, self-pity, and other motivations, the human who has not had this explained to him resists the coming negative events if he knows them. He tries to evade them, to avoid them, and to not have to confront them. The human also fears these kinds of coming negative events if he knows them in advance. But none of that is permitted, because already, just through that alone, through fear, the coming events will change and will evoke wrong effects. The human is still not capable of coping with, and fully understanding, the truth. And he is not yet mature enough to know his future and to approach it correctly. For that reason the truth must be rewritten prophetically for him, as in equations, in order to make him think independently, whereby he slowly finds and recognizes the truth himself. For that reason the human must be spoken to in prophecies and parables, and also, for that reason, the events of the future must be explained to him in veiled form. Everything must be explained and be presented in a rewritten form, whereby the human is stirred to thought and begins to search. Only through his research does he find possibilities of an interpretation, and in that way, slowly recognizes the truth. Were he not spoken to in parables and prophecies, and the explanations of the future not presented in circumscribed and somehow mysterious form, then he would make no effort to do his own thinking, and he would also want to change the future because, if it were all presented in open, unparaphrased form, he would indeed know all of this in every detail, with which he truly could not cope. I know from my own experience that this is actually the way it is. Many things were explained to me regarding my own life before the events actually overtook me. And I know just as many things about my life which are yet to happen to me. I have learnt that knowing these things in advance requires a great deal of energy, and that this kind of knowledge can lead to the edge of madness, I often shivered with great terror when I knew that, yet again, a very bad incident unavoidably approached me. And very often I was on the verge of simply throwing everything in and preparing an end to my life. But with time I learned that I had to master everything within myself if I wanted to do justice to life. I slowly learned to overcome the ghastly terror or angst and to correctly adapt to everything. But I am convinced that I would certainly not have been able to overcome everything without the loving help of my extraterrestrial friends. To know the actual truth about the future of one's own life is insane, because the human is not able to cope with this truth. He must quite simply be shattered by it. But, if that is not so in my case, it is only because a superhuman strength, as well as the teachings of the truth, as well as the conquering of myself, and, not the least of it, an appropriate outside help, have fundamentally changed me. So that is what happened with me, and not all the success is my own merit. I certainly never would have done that alone, all by myself, because, insofar as consciousness is concerned, I am certainly still much too primitive, too stupid, and too underdeveloped. Through my own initiative alone, I never would have learned how to know my future, how not to influence it incorrectly, and how to approach it correctly. And today, if I feel no more angst and fear for all the coming events of the impending decades, that is also absolutely certainly not something that I earned on my own. I know what has to come, yet for that I feel no more angst or fear. I know that I may never try to change or influence the future merely because I know this future. This knowledge also conquered the angst and fear in me. Certainly I have not become unfeeling through this curbing of angst and fear. Quite the contrary. My feelings have become even more sensitive and move along extremely fine courses. Therefore, if an event of the future which is known to me draws near, then my feelings begin to act, and often I become quite uneasy. It is also that way now, because I think about my future in the coming year, about an event that will be unavoidable. In 11 months I am to step into a further episode of life, the entrance to which is to be very hard for me. I now know the precise place and the precise date that this passage, over into a new episode of life, will take place. I know that now. And I know that I am to lose my left arm in a bus accident. I know all that, and I know that only 11 months remain for me until then, if I do not calculate the time precisely to the day. Yet what will be, will be. I perceive no more angst for that which comes, only my feelings perform their insane play. Asket's explanation from the 14th of February 1953 in the desert mountains at the Dead Sea in Jordan, written down with Asket's memory assistance and through her apparatuses, on the 14th of September, 1964 in Marauli, India.
Through the various trips into the past, you have now obtained the required cognitions to confidently cope with all the truth you have to face up to in the trip into the past which now follows. The intention is to lead you back to the year 32, where you are to witness, there and then, those events the records of which have been handed down to you in false forms in the New Testament. This is required because you can only fulfill your mission when you know the actual truth in very great detail. But this is truly quite different from the way it is presented in your scriptures. It is in no way a
Damn, the year 32 would indeed have to be the year of the crucifixion of Christ. Or
I speak of that. That is correct. I have to determine that your manner of expression has indeed changed a lot in the last few days. It is no longer so strongly orientated towards religion as it was at the beginning of our acquaintanceship.
holy smoke, is that so surprising? I indeed almost went mad and have seen so many things that I can no longer process them. I was a slave to damned religion and this idiotic Christianity my whole life long. Now you suddenly turn up with your mad friend and drag me out into outer space and far back into various past epochs. Everywhere I have to see and recognize that the damned religions are only mean and filthy machinations of mad or power-greedy humans, and that everything is only a quite damned idiocy for the purpose of the exploitation of us dumb commoners. And now you even want to drag me back to the time of the crucifixion in order to actually prove to me the goddamned idiocy of these power-mad swine. Then I'm still supposed to keep quiet there, eh?
Asket's eyes widen and she looks at Jitchi with alarm.
Jitchi, I advise you to talk to Asket somewhat more politely. Otherwise I will punch you in the nose. You were indeed the one who practically forced himself on us in order to travel through the times with us and to become acquainted with the actual truth. If, as a consequence, you want to spin out, then you have yourself to blame because during your life until now, you allowed yourself to be misled by the false religious teachings. If you have now finally recognized the truth, and if you are furious because of that, then you must be furious with yourself, because the blame lies totally with you alone. Had you once quite reasonably contemplated everything, then various things would have had to occur to you which would have allowed religions to appear in the correct light for you. Therefore, you also do not need to simply condemn religions and stamp them into the ground, because a religion is not in and of itself wrong, if it is evaluated and utilized with knowledge. The mistake with all of them is only that each one was transformed into a cult by irresponsible humans, and is ruled by delusional dogmas which lead humans into error. But in itself, each religion possesses many good and correct things which point many people to the correct path, and are able to help them in many sorts of matters. Religion in and of itself is therefore not bad, rather only that which is made of it in association with the unreal dogmas and many erroneous teachings of irresponsible, delusional believers and prophet sharks and so forth.
I will wring this bloke's neck if I come into his time.
You will quite nicely leave that be because, in my opinion, the bloke, as you call him, is a very worthy and extraordinary human. I already know who you mean, and I will beat the living daylights out of you if you even say only one bad word to him. In no way can he himself do anything about being branded as a son of God, and still even greater nonsense. Because according to everything that I know today, he was used without his own will for the founding and maintenance of a new religion. Emmanuel must be a wonderful human and extraordinarily wise and clever as well.
He speaks the truth, Jitchi.
Please excuse me, I simply could not do anything else. Everything has simply been too much for me. Perhaps I also do not understand the connections correctly. I'm really very sorry. Please excuse me.
It is all right. But now look at these articles of clothing from my homeland. You should put these on now and cover them with these cloaks. I recently brought these 6 cloaks with me out of the year 32 in the foreknowledge that I would need them. Because we will mix with the masses during this trip into the past, as we already have twice before, we must once again wear native clothing. But unfortunately, I only have these cloaks, for which reason you should wear the clothing from my homeland underneath.
Man, if we take off the cloaks, we will indeed look like angels.
That would be so, yet no grounds exist to take off the cloaks. Therefore, we will also not be conspicuous. So go now and get dressed. Also take these head coverings with you.
Explanation from the 14th of September, 1964. Jitchi and I changed clothes, and then looked like some sort of inconspicuous figures from an ancient time. Only if we had removed the cloaks and taken off the peculiar head coverings would we have been conspicuous. In the floor-length, silvery white, shimmering and richly pleated billowing dresses, we looked like angels, almost exactly as they were portrayed in the religious picture books, which I had leafed through at various times. What we still lacked was the long hair that these depicted angels always had. Unfortunately, our haircuts were short, as was the norm, yet hidden with the head coverings.
So you look quite good. But now, listen to me very closely, because I still have several very important explanations to give to you two now, which you must keep to yourselves. So, And now we will go back to the time of Emmanuel.
Explanation from the 5th of September 1975, Hinwil, Switzerland. Then we still made several special small preparations before Asket took us into outer space again with her ship, and then carried out the transmission into the past. Our landing place in the past, in the year 32, was the same place where we had taken off only minutes before. Minutes which, however, now suddenly lay about 2,000 years in the past. I am still able to remember very well that the entire landscape of the past was only very slightly different from the way it was in the normal present time of the year 1953. Several ranges of hills and mountains were somewhat different, as were the immediate surroundings of the landing place. That which had been subject to fundamental alterations were villages and the little town of Jerusalem, as I was also able to determine in the later time, in the 1960s. But all in all, everything had otherwise remained about the same, at least as far as the landscape was concerned. After the landing in year 32, we immediately set out on the path to Jerusalem. With a 4-day march through the wild and sheer mountains, filthy and dusty, we finally arrived near the city, if I may so designate the then larger walled village. In this 4-day march on foot, we fed ourselves with food which Jitchi had prepared shortly before our departure into the past, in the year 1953. From somewhere, Asket had acquired an entire little sack of ancient coins which she made shiny again with some sort of radiation. These coins were intended to help us to support ourselves in the past. During the march on foot, Asket explained yet very many things which could be helpful to us in the time of the year 32. They were all explanations which related to ways of behaving and so forth, so we would not be conspicuous. And because these explanations are not important, they were simply bypassed in the memory recording and were not written down. The explanations and communication of experiences were therefore only recorded again and written down where they are important. Still to explain is that Jitchi had also already received a language transformer from Asket with the first trip into the past, because he also could not speak the various languages. Likewise, Asket also naturally wore one of these small devices herself.
Now where are we then?
Quite near Jerusalem, which you see down there. We are here on the Mount of Olives, and the huts there in the foreground are called the village of Bethphage. But now look there at the men who are coming along the path.
Who are the people then?
A very wise earth human with his followers. I knew that he would come through here at this time, therefore I led you here first.
You mean?
It is so.
Incredible! Which one of them is it?
I am certainly peculiarly moved, but I really do not find that incredible. I think I know which he is, the one there in the middle, the tall one who stands out over everybody.
You observe very precisely, it is he.
You with your damned power of observation and your thrice-cursed realism. Indeed, absolutely nothing is able to bring you out of your goddamn calmness, eh? Lousy slave driver, you damned...
Now get yourself obligingly together, and just consider whom you will encounter in a few minutes. That should indeed be the greatest thing in your life. Therefore do not continually curse, otherwise I will paste you one.
I totally believe you would. You no longer have any respect at all for your elders, eh? Now you actually believe that you are as big as a giant and a hero as well, eh? You actually think that your damn knowledge and realism has made you dear God in person, eh?
If you do not hold your trap now, then I will punch you one. Behave yourself obligingly like a civilized human, even if you cannot cope with the situation. You certainly wanted to come with us, and now you cannot cope with the greatness of the hour. Can you not come to terms with events and adjust to the present reality? The truth is too hard for you. You cannot digest it and threaten to spin out. Therefore try to be quiet and control yourself, because you namely curse and blaspheme only because you are not equal to the situation and cannot cope with the truth. That simply requires its time, then you will manage it. But please stop cursing and blaspheming because it is completely wrongly placed here and is completely useless.
I have listened, but I do not swallow your hogwash. You are a goddamned realist and nothing seems to shake you. But I am a human with feelings and thoughts and not such a soulless and thoughtless robot like you. Step out in front of the people and lie to them that you are God in person, you thrice-cursed vile wretch, you megalomaniacal idiot, you low scoundrel and filth. You can just ouch.
Without saying another word, I punched Jitchi in the middle of the nose with my clenched fist.
I'm sorry, Jitchi, but is that enough now?
He is bleeding.
Should I perhaps approve of his hysteria?
Nobody said anything about that. You have certainly dealt with it correctly. I only said that he is bleeding.
Nobody has ever been killed by a bit of a nosebleed.
But it is.
Leave it, Asket. It is my own fault. He only did what he had to do. It was correct that way because I really spun out and the punch was good medicine. He brought me to my senses again. Everything is simply too much for me. I simply am not coping with it. Please excuse me and do not be angry with me.
Nobody said anything about that either. Forget it.
You have a strange way of behaving correctly in such situations.
What must be, must be. But look now. There come the men. Whatever will they think when they see us?
Such thoughts are not significant, because they are mostly only of an interrogative nature in regard to the who and where to. But look, they are now sitting down at the edge of the path and only the one is coming here.
That is indeed Emmanuel. What in the world should I say to him? Girl.
Be greeted in peace.
Your greeting applies also to you.
I join in that.
Go to my brothers. They will tend to you.
These words were directed at Jitchi, who without a word of reply, went obediently to the men sitting at the edge of the path, who immediately attended to him.
You are Edward.
That I am. And this?
Is Asket. I know. But I do not wish to talk with her, rather with you. You have struck very hard. My words are no reproach. You have behaved correctly. He required this pain. He lost control of his mind.
You know it very precisely. Now I also know why the people made you into a Superman with a divine function.
You are very wise and quick thinking.
You deserve the flowers and not me.
You have peculiar language, but I understand its meaning. It is good and it honors you. But let us sit here on these stones because I would like to have a conversation with you.
You know my name and also Asket's. Do you know each other then? And has she told you about me?
You are very connected to reality. No, I have as yet never spoken with Asket. My knowledge about you two is of another nature. It is to be found in my power of consciousness, through which I behold the times.
That therefore signifies clairvoyance, so to speak.
In a certain manner you think correctly, because truly it is previewing, a looking out ahead.
In a certain manner. Then it can only be that you are able, through the power of your consciousness, to wander through the ages and can explore them in that way.
That is my knowledge. How are you able to grasp that? I understand. That way is very good. You must also know it, because very difficult things stand before you.
That is so, I know, yet shortly you will also face a very difficult test.
Life demands all sorts of things, as you say. But we must tread our path and traverse it in honor and in fulfillment of the laws. As I will tread my path, so will you also tread yours. And in the same way, every human will always have his own path to traverse.
I am also of the same view, but may I put some questions to you which are burningly interesting to me?
Your nature and your thoughts are familiar to me, and so I want to answer your questions before you have to voice them. My teaching, which I spread in these lands, is not new, and it is well known to the scribes. But they falsify the old teaching of the prophets which was handed down to them, and is very learned. But they disdain and falsify it and interpret it to their own advantage. Therefore they accuse me of lying because I preach against their lies. From the old teaching of the laws of creation and the Spirit, they have set up erroneous cults which take freedom of consciousness from the human and drive him into servitude, whereby they can enrich themselves with his possessions. From the spiritual teaching, they have made a false teaching, and they have abased creation to a human entity which they call God. But God is a ruler over humankinds and over worlds, and he can never be put on a level with creation, because its being is the highest, and outside of it, truly, nothing exists. But the scribes and the Pharisees dispute these teachings of the Spirit, and they blaspheme me by calling me a liar because I announce the truth. The truth, however, is at all times unpopular, and it is also so at this time. Truly, I say to you, if a human such as I speaks of the truth, announces it and spreads it, he will thus be persecuted and hated because of it, in my time as in yours. I will therefore be persecuted and will not escape the Myrmidons, because life has determined it for me thus. But you will also be persecuted in that way, because also you will, in your future world, have a mission to fulfill, as do I. My coming days are very difficult, and I feel bitterness and hurt in me, because I know the events which approach me. Yet I will not escape from them because this is determined this way. The human of this world has succumbed to very great need and confusion, driven in by the false teachings of the scribes and Pharisees, and all those who stroll along in their footsteps. Truly I say to you, this will lead to very much need and misery on this world. Today on the chairs of the prophets sit the scribes and the Pharisees, and everything they preach to the people is barefaced lies and deception. They are hypocrites and twisters of the truth. Outwardly, before the people, they seem devout and good, but inwardly they are full of hypocrisy, transgression, and falseness. Inside themselves, they are more evil than every nest of snakes or vipers, and they claim to be great in their thinking and knowledge, yet they possess no understanding. But upon them will come all the righteous blood which flowed on earth because of them, from the first prophet onwards, who their fathers and forefathers murdered, up to the blood of those who they will yet murder in the future. They murder in the name of love and justice, and thereby actually intend to serve only their own greed for wealth and power. They have transformed the teaching of the Spirit and the laws and recommendations of creation into a very evil cult, and frightened the humans with death, with the vengeance of their bloodthirsty God, and with sword-bearing angels. They teach the humans to be afraid of the splendor and allness of creation, because they deny its existence and replace it with their God and their saints. Truly so is it, and the coming times will be very bad. There will be wailing and the gnashing of teeth in the world, and the blood of uncountable, innocently sacrificed and murdered ones will deeply saturate the dry earth. Woe to this world and these humans. Their lot will be very hard right into the distant future. Truly so will it be. One still sees in me only the human born of earth, and that I am a revolutionary and fight against untruth, but that badly interprets me. But I know the truth, and possess the wisdom of knowledge, the powers of the Spirit, and of thinking, and the will to fulfill my mission. All the hate against me will not keep me from my path. The truth is more important than the transient pain of the body. This can be tortured and destroyed, but the truth and the spirit can never be killed. This truth is not yet known at this time, but this will change in the future. Truly, out of my true humanity, a cult will be set up, which will bring with it very bad and deadly consequences. Seen in me, however, is still only the human, which I truly also am, but soon a form of malevolence will be made out of me, and I will be equated with creation. Truly, I know these events of the future, and indeed I cannot change them, not even if I rebel against them. I was born a human, I live as such, and as such, fulfill my appointed mission. But also as a human I will suffer the fate of corporal death in 83 years. By then my body will be very old, yet my spirit and thinking will remain undiminished. The coming event, which is chosen for me as a martyr, will also change nothing in regard to that. The event contains only bodily pains, but they will be lost on the wind through the power of the Spirit, and my thinking and knowledge, as well as my wisdom and love. Truly it will be so, and afterwards I will end my mission.
Excuse me, please, if I interrupt you, yet I believe that I am indeed permitted to do that. Your expositions are very informative for me, but it appears to me that I can recognize from that you, in a certain sense, have succumbed to world pain, and thereby digress from the actual questions. Would it not perhaps therefore be better if I ask my own questions?
Truly you are very sensitive, because pain about the world bores into me. Until now nobody has been able to determine this, but you effortlessly draw this out of me. You are very much more advanced in your development than I had gathered. I live here in a world which is the distant past for you, but which signifies the present for me. Truly, your evolution is about 2,000 years further advanced from my time, which I did not take into account. It is therefore not fitting that I converse with you in the same way that I do with my contemporaries. Truly, I had not considered this. In your entire development, you are about 2 millennia ahead of my time, and are correspondingly further developed. Furthermore, I know truly that you were very continuously instructed and have attained a very high level in spiritual values. Truly, I had not considered all that. Therefore, it shall be an honor for me to answer your questions at your discretion.
Sincere thanks, Emmanuel. It is not my intention to instruct you somehow. I only thought that a direct questioning is perhaps better because I have ascertained the aforementioned things.
Truly, what you say is honest. I will answer your questions for you.
Thank you. As I know from you, you know very many things up into the very distant future. Thereby you must also be orientated about what will be made out of your person. You have indeed also already explained that in a circumscribed form. But I have fully understood your explanations because I do know the New Testament, which allegedly contains your teaching. But for a short time now I have known that the allegedly handed down teaching is only an evil falsification, and only corresponds to the actual truth in very few things. Not at all to mention thereby regarding your own person, who has been pressed into a form of a god and a form of creation, and who is proclaimed as the Redeemer of earth humanity. You sit before me and I see that you are precisely as much a human as is Asket here, as is Jitchi over there and your brothers and students, who in our time are called disciples. Now I wonder how it has come about that no direct documentation of your teaching has been handed down, because to my knowledge, the first words of the New Testament which exists in my time were written only around 200 years after your alleged death on the cross. Do you not write down any facts at all of your teaching in such a way that they can be kept for posterity?
Truly, your question is very precisely directed. Consider, my time is about 2 millennia before yours, and in this time only certain forms of society are literate. On account of my mission, I did also learn writing and reading, yet I have insufficient time to write down my teaching. And if I speak of my teaching truly, then I thereby name the teaching of all great ages, the teaching of the Spirit, and the teaching of the laws and recommendations of creation, which are eternally imperishable. I learnt it in a similar way to you, and furthermore spent long years in the distant land of Kush,
Today part of North India.
where I was permitted to experience further learning. So the teaching is indeed preached by me, yet it is truly not originally from me. Truly your question is, however, warranted. I fully know the false and wrong teachings of the future about my true teachings and about my person. But no practical steps are planned to change these coming misleading events, because the mass of erring and falsifying humans is too great to be able to influence them, even on a small scale. This will unfortunately lead to a false teaching of much longer than 3,000 years, and to very much need, pain, hate, misery, and bloodshed. Truly, in spite of that, however, the truth will not be lost, because it will, in a safe place, remain transmitted and also outlast the time in a written form. Among my followers, I have a literate man named Judas Iscariot, who writes down the most important parts of the teaching and events, which later, well preserved, shall outlast the time in order to hand down the actual truth to posterity. With the help of an ex-priest, these texts will be found by you, in your time, in Jerusalem, and you will spread them again, true to their meaning, and make them accessible to the humans. But your time is still not ripe enough for that, and only in little more than 2 decades, in your own time, will the seed of truth find a little fertile ground.
That is good. You therefore mean that your teaching really remains preserved, and then it will also be found by me somewhere.
Truly, that is what I am saying. Already the texts are being sought now in order to destroy them, and to use them as indictments against me. One scroll has already been stolen from the writer and kept closed by the Pharisees and the scribes. Judah Iscariot, a son of a Pharisee, secretly took it out of Judas Iscariot's bag in order to sell it to my persecutors for 70 pieces of silver, in order thereby to be able to charge me with blasphemy against God. But Judas Iscariot has been ordered by me to write the text once again, and now to keep it quite safe, whereby its purpose will outlast the ages.
You speak of Judas Iscariot, who is supposed to be your betrayer, as the texts of my time still convey, nonetheless falsified.
Truly I speak of him, but he will in no way be the guilty one. He who will hand me over to the persecutors is the same one who stole the texts and sold them.
Therefore Judah Iscariot.
So is it. But his father will spread the lie that Judas Iscariot is the betrayer, because the Pharisee name Iscariot must not be soiled. But the reason is also based on the fact that the priests, scribes, and Pharisees and their followers can say, "Behold, one from his own ranks has betrayed him and handed him over to a death on the cross. Behold, behold, how can his teaching be truth if his own people betray him and sell him?"
So that is the way it is. Now I understand quite a bit more. But now I ask myself, who then really hanged himself in Potter's Field respectively? Who will hang himself there in the coming time?
Judah Iscariot.
Oh, that is how it is. But now something else. I am here 2,000 years in the past. What do you think will happen should this fact be made known in my time?
Truly, it will come to pass that you will be accused of lying. Many will accuse you of blaspheming against God, and presuming that you, of all people, could come into contact with me. However, do not concern yourself about this, because were it another, they would say the same thing about him. Truly, you have seen to and learnt very much in your life up to this point, and you have also traveled back into the time of Moses, where you have encountered many truths. From these truths, however, grows in you the required strength to confront the hostility. Truly, several from your own ranks will accuse you of dishonesty when they learn of your association with me. But their accusations will truly only result because they will still be completely lacking in judgment and are not able to recognize the truth. Their thinking will still be trapped in worldly forms, and their knowledge will be very unclear and small. Being together with me, namely, will seem monstrous and fantastic to them, because their understanding will still not be mature enough to comprehend this entire truth. But your worst enemies will be the enviers and know-it-alls, as well as the extremists and the cultic circles, who will have lost every sense of reality through their false teachings. I know truly that in your time the people live in the mistaken belief that I am the embodiment of creation. So then, in your time, they call me the Anointed One, and they thereby wander far from every truth, through deep darkness engendered by belief. Truly, truly, I say to you that many among these will be misled ones who are in pursuit of your life. Be therefore watchful and protect yourself from them, because the worst are always those who are misled by hate, by being know-it-alls, by jealousy and fanaticism, as well as those who are misled by some sort of cults. Their thinking and behavior is at all times directed towards the demand for blood, because their minds are always distinguished by vengeance. But also protect yourself from the critics and false realists, because they also conceal great dangers within themselves. They believe that they stand above all things, but indeed they live only in their own stupid and uncomprehending world of thought. Outwardly they speak very learnedly and want to shine greatly, but inside of themselves they are wretched, ignorant, and full of evil rubbish.
I understand, yet I know that I can defend myself from hostility.
Truly, it will not be easy for you because all human irrationality and the cultic false teachings will peak exactly in your time.
That may well be so, yet I have been taught to fight. But how is it now with yourself, I mean with your name? It is indeed Emmanuel, but in spite of that in my time you are called Jesus Christ. That is the way it is in the New Testament anyway.
Truly that is an evil vituperation, which is foreign to every truth. Up until this point in time in which I talk with you now, this name has never been uttered. Only in a later time will it become coined by a human whose thinking will be confused. He will also bear the blame for me being designated as creation, and for the lie that I am omnipotent. All this will happen this way through Paul, who currently is still one of my worst enemies, and is still named Saul.
You mean that through the construction of Christianity, he will found his own erroneous religion, a Paulism, so to speak.
Truly you speak the truth.
What is your own position then in regard to the title Jesu Christi or Jesus Christ which has been attributed to you?
In your time this name is very imprinted. Truly, truly that aggrieves me greatly. Never do I wish to be so named, and it never should have happened. Yet this has become unavoidable for the path of development, because the human of this earth must first go into error in order to find the truth. As I hear, however, the name which is not appropriate to me, Jesus Christ, truly, this aggrieves me greatly, because it will be, without exception, uttered only by humans who still live in confusion regarding thinking and knowledge, and have not yet come to terms with the truth. And they will unfortunately be very many at your time, and that is truly very sad and causes me pain.
You mean that only a misled human calls you Jesus Christ?
Truly that is what I said, because every human who knows the truth will call me by my correct name, because for him, the truth signifies life and knowledge.
But many will not want to understand this.
That will be so, because their understanding about the truth is still very lacking. Truly, I say to you, it will also be these who will say that that which is transmitted by you corresponds only to lies or partial truths, and therefore not to the full truth. They will say that everything presented and transmitted only serves the finding of the truth via one path, because many paths would lead to the truth. That is truly also the case if all paths are considered. But what I convey and what you will also convey is the truth in the truth. This truth does not represent a path to the truth. Rather, it is truly the ancient all-primeval truth itself. It can never be changed and always possesses the same values. It is the ultimate, the existing, the timeless, and that of the great time of all periods and levels.
You mean, according to the understanding of my time, that it is the eternal truth and indeed in all dimensions of the material and the spiritual?
Truly that is so. In your time, of the great time will be called eternity.
Precisely, that is actually so, because the bigwigs of religion have high-handedly renamed the old appellation, Great Time Age, eternity.
You speak the truth.
Thank you. Yet now tell me, is it very unwelcome to you if the people call you Jesus Christ or similar?
Truly you precisely understand the sense of my thoughts. This name is wrong when applied to me, and I am aggrieved to know that it will be used for me in the future. I bring the teaching of the truth of the great time, and thereby do not do wrong. If one, however, associates me in any kind of manner with this name, then one accuses me of wrong and of lying.
You are very sensitive, Emmanuel.
That is not so. It is only that this name, however, is not consistent with the sense of the truth, and it insults me.
I understand. I'm very sorry.
You also feel to the same degree.
Perhaps. But now it interests me whether the texts mentioned by you will really serve the truth in my time. I mean thereby the records of Judas Iscariot.
Truly, it will be they, even if they will initially be greatly doubted. Initially, the accusation will be made that they are lies and a falsification, yet with time the truth will be victorious. But first, much adversity and defamation will come about due to the text, even out of your own ranks. Yet the great time truth within the truth will always be victorious. Many attempts will be undertaken to cause the truth and the genuineness of the text to appear in a dark light and appear to be untruth. Yet all attempts will be useless, because the breaking through of the truth in your time is now already certain. Truly, very evil things against the text will be brought into play in order to revile it as lies and to destroy it. Very many paths will be trodden to that end. Out of foolishness, even lower spirits and the dead will be called upon, although that is impossible, in order to revile my teachings, newly presented by you, as lies, in the same way as do the scribes, the Pharisees, and the priests of my time, who are only able to come into contact with very lowly, ignorant and misled humans, and influence them by means of belief. So will it also be in your time, because the humans of your time will have succumbed just as much to delusional beliefs and ignorance as have the humans of my time. That will truly be a wicked evil in your time, too.
They are indeed not exactly rosy outlooks. What will be asserted then in order to put into question the genuineness of your teaching and the text, and to make the accusation that they are lies?
Truly, there will be very many paths trodden to that end. A new form of the lie will, however, be this. It will be asserted that the text is indeed very valuable and contains certain truths, yet it does not transmit my teaching. Rather, it is only the teaching of another who has also borne the name Emmanuel. It will even be doubted that I am Emmanuel, and I will be forced into another person's identity. This will result in association with the name Jesus Christ, malevolently given to me. It will be asserted that I, Emmanuel, would not be falsely named Jesus Christ. So it is supposed to appear that I, Emmanuel, and the person of Jesus Christ, who I am imputed to be, have been two different people. These further lies about me will be invented about me very early in your time.
Those are indeed quite cheery outlooks, and I can prepare myself for all kinds of things. But now I just have a somewhat different question, and indeed in relation to Christmas festivities. You do indeed certainly know that your birthday is celebrated in my time as Christmas festivities. Do you find that correct?
Many festivities are carried out in honor of deceased persons who have some sort of significance. Truly, this is nothing more than a cult surrounding personalities in order to honor them, or thereby to promote wealth for a few. Honor should befit the honorable, whereby a memory of them remains preserved. But neither a cult or a business for the acquisition of wealth should ever be made out of that. In your time you call the cult around me religion. Truly that is very well known to me. But this religion is interspersed with very many false teachings of manifold forms, as well as with duplicity about the time of my birth. In your time you celebrate the day of my birth on December 24th of any given year. But this is only the day of the festival of a bloodthirsty idol from the lands of the Parsa peoples.
Later Persia, called Iran since 1934.
And does not come near to equating to the day of my birth. Your calculation of time truly does not correspond to reality, and therefore neither do your calculations about the time of my birth. According to your time's calculation of time, the day of my birth is determined as the 3rd day of the 2nd month.
You mean the 3rd of February?
This is what you designate this time.
You must indeed know it precisely. But why did this time difference come about?
On one hand, it was handed down wrongly, and on the other hand, through erroneous calculations and continual innovations to the manner in which dates were calculated.
That is evident. But you have a manner of speech which I constantly hear from you, also which was quite obviously correctly handed down to my time, namely the word truly or truly, truly. On what basis do you always weave in this word, and what does it signify to you?
It is a quirk of mine for the strengthening of my words. Truly only a quirk, such as every human possesses. One can express the sense of the word in different forms. By weaving in this word, however, you can circumvent many other descriptive words which often require long interpretations. Therefore I employ that word for the purpose, or for the strengthening of, it is just as I say, it is the truth, it is actually so, it is accurate.
That is evident. But now I want to come back once again to your teaching said more precisely to your text, which indeed is now being written down by Judas Iscariot. You said that it remains preserved up to my time. Thus it must in my time be therefore hidden somewhere. Can you tell me where it is located, and can I fetch it from there?
Truly I know where it will be, and I will tell you the precise place at a later point in time. But it is not intended that you will fetch the text prematurely from the place where it will be hidden. Nor is this intended for any others.
Shame, but I will not defy the determination.
You are truly very learned in things of the spirit and thinking, as well as in regard to responsibility. In this way, you are very far in advance of my time, just as, however, you also live more than 3 millennia ahead of your own time in regard to the knowledge of the Spirit. Therefore you will have very great need in your time, because the understanding, possessed by the humans of your time, of truthful knowledge of the Spirit, will, as in my time, still be in its very beginnings.
How far advanced of your time are you then in regard to spiritual thinking?
I live in this way, in approximately your actual future time.
You mean that in respect of spirit consciousness evolution, you correspond to a position relating to about the year 1953. But that cannot be true, because the humans of this time, which is indeed my time, are only positioned at the very beginnings insofar as spiritual evolution is concerned, as you indeed just said yourself. But there is something not right there. Or,
Truly you think correctly. But you have not correctly interpreted what I said. I said, I live in approximately your actual future time.
oh, that is the way it is. Now I understand. You thereby mean that in regard to your development and so on, calculated in your time you live in my future time, therefore roughly calculated as about the year 2000. But you did indeed say that of me, and thereby you position yourself at the same stage as me. But you have spoken of more than 3,000 years in regard to me. I am supposed to be advanced by this number of years in spiritual development in relation to the real time of the year 1953. Is that not quite grossly underestimated for you?
You truly do not consider the space of time which lies between your time and mine. These are 2 millennia, and you have turned back into the past by around this much time. From this time, in which I live here, I am advanced in my spiritual evolution already by about 2,000 years, while you are about 3,000 years advanced of your real time. So therefore our spiritual development is truly not the same in my current and in your normal time. You are, in real life, about 2,000 years further advanced than myself, and are indeed already 3,000 years advanced of your own time in your spiritual development. Truly, it is calculated in such a way that you, in your time, and I in my time, do not display a common level of spiritual development. But for me, you live in the distant future in your real time of 1953, so 2,000 years in the future. But my spiritual development is truly further developed by this amount of time. When you therefore return to your time, you are advanced in your spiritual development by more than 3,000 years, and therefore do not possess the same spiritual level as I possess here in my time. But in your time, my spirit form already has again 2,000 years of development time behind it, and has experienced it. So, in your time, it will then be further advanced in all spiritual respects by about 3,000 years, because it is very quick in spiritual development, as a result of its own process of the repetition of the evolution of billions of years, already run through once. Consequently, the level of my spiritual evolution in the year 1953, where you indeed also live, will also correspond to your level of spiritual evolution.
Unfortunately, Emmanuel's explanatory sentences 202 to 212, are given in a very meager form, and additionally, with the precondition that 2 humans have conversed here, whose meager utterances were sufficient for understanding. But furthermore, the interpolations and the provisional appraisals emerged in pictorial thought forms, whereupon everything seems quite incomprehensible and confusing to the uninitiated. Therefore, the following comes forth from the entire explanation. Emmanuel's level of spiritual evolution, in the year 32, corresponds to Billy's normal level of spiritual evolution in the year 1953. However, Billy Edward Albert Meyer, in this time on his part, is already again more than 3,000 years further advanced, and consequently again more than 3,000 years in advance of Emmanuel's spirit form in overall spiritual evolution.
now I understand the things perfectly. But now please just tell me how things stand with your teachings. How should they be described and what is still correct within that which has been handed down? It is indeed said in the New Testament that you are the Son of God, and that God himself embodies creation. Also in these Testament texts, God is always even spoken of as the Heavenly Father, and you are spoken of as the Redeemer of mankind and so forth. Everything is quite confused and often even absolutely illogical and paradoxical.
Truly you say it. I already told you that Judas Iscariot's text, which contained sections of my teaching, was stolen. This text will be the basis of all falsifications. Presently they are also continued, in a falsified manner, by the Pharisees and scribes, and are not completed according to my teachings. The reason that this is happening is truly, however, only in order to falsify them now, and even more at a later time, to the point of being unrecognizable, and also to use them against me in court. As I therefore speak and teach of creation, the texts are being falsely modified in such a way that mendacious words are put into my mouth, and I am supposed to have spoken of a Father in heaven, the gathering of a host of angels, and many other false things. But I have never done that because these forms do not correspond to the truth. I have always faithfully spoken of the truth of creation as being of creation, and of God as being of God. God was never put on a level with creation by me, because God is a creature of creation, as are you and I and every other human. In his form, he is a king of wisdom and a ruler over human races, in the same way that a king or emperor also is a ruler over human races on earth. But creation is the immeasurable secret, and the creation of every creation. It is omnipotence, knowledge, wisdom, love, omniscience, and being. And my teachings speak of it alone, when I talk of it and its laws and recommendations, and of the power of eternity. Truly, this alone is the truth and nothing else. But in your time, when everything is handed down differently, then that corresponds to an evil deception, an abominable falsification on the part of the twisters of the texts and false teachers. Truly, the point of the falsifications lies just in the slander against me from the side of the scribes, Pharisees, and priests, in order to have me die on the cross. But the further reason also lies in the fact that, through these false and twisted teachings, the humans of earth are to be beaten into serfdom, so that they are caused to succumb to poverty in regard to knowledge and reason, whereby they will be able to be shamefully enslaved through belief, so they can be exploited in evil ways.
They are really very profound things. But how is it then with religion in general? I find that in spite of the monstrous falsifications, still various things handed down are quite good when seen from a religious point of view. And when I thereby speak of religion, then I mean really the religion itself, not for instance the dogmas and other false teachings. By that I therefore mean that which in your language you more aptly designate as cults. Apart from this cult, I find that which one must designate as religion quite good, or at least partly quite good.
Truly, you are not inferior to me in my teachings. It is as you say. The reconnecting things, therefore the religions, are of great value for allowing the human to recognize knowledge. The reconnecting religious values always are and remain the values of the spirit and therewith wisdom. But these religions must be free of misleading cults, from dogmas and false teachings. Normally, religions themselves contain matters concerning the knowledge of the spirit, natural and creational laws and recommendations in pure forms, while cults, dogmas, and other unreal teachings, which are based on unreal assumptions and assertions, are of purely human origin. That means that religious teachings, in the form where they are constructed by means of dogmas and other kinds of false teachings, are wrong in every respect, because the religious teachings themselves also become falsified through that which is not real. A religious teaching itself can only be valuable and truly instructive if it is free of dogmas and human false teachings, as well as other nonsense, and is brought together with the religious. But in my time as in yours, Religion is fundamentally wrong, and only religion alone can be useful. Religion always remains wrong for these times, and only religion finds true legitimacy. This will continue until the truth is again purified, and religion can again be united. The reconnection and the joining together again, therefore religion and religion, can only then constitute a harmonic unity when dogmas and other false teachings and all human nonsense is removed from them and destroyed. Humans of your time already recognize this profound truth and search out the pure religious facts in the false traditions in order to process them into a form which recognizes knowledge. However, their powers and cognitions in this regard are still in their very beginning stages, and largely they are still trapped in their cultic and false religions, whereby they become greatly confused and are not able to separate the chaff from the wheat. They certainly know about the falseness of the cultic religions and about the truth of the truthful religions, yet they are still too trapped by that which pertains to cults for them to be able to free themselves from them. So, unfortunately, they always still seek the truth of the truth on the wrong paths, and do not recognize that this lies much closer to them than they suspect. Truly, that is unfortunately so in my time, and it will also be so in your time.
My thoughts are in accord with yours. But it will be very difficult to convince humans of this truth.
Truly, that is so. But the truth will always have to be fought for. My time, however, is exceeded for today, and I must go on my way. But we will see each other again and speak of very many things yet.
I hope so, because I still have very many questions. But in closing, may I still ask you one single question?
So be it.
When you came along here to Asket, Jitchi and me, you practically simply passed over Asket with the conversation, and since then she simply sits here near us and listens to our words. Do you have certain grounds for behaving that way? And do you not believe that Asket must feel somewhat neglected by that?
Truly, truly, these words arise from your feelings. The girl is in peace here, as are you and I, and we are all equal. Nobody feels neglected in our circle, so also not this girl here. But Asket has brought you here into the past for very definite reasons, because you should recognize the truth, and not her. She herself knows this truth in every detail, and therefore requires no explanations.
It is as Emmanuel says.
Then I am reassured, but what should we do now?
Follow me and stay close to me.
Explanation from the 5th of September 1975. Hinwil. That is also what happened, and we followed Emmanuel and his group. During our conversation, Jitchi had formed a friendship with Emmanuel's followers, and for the time being, no longer concerned himself with Asket and me. Explanation from the 7th of September 1975. Hinwil, unfortunately, the further reports of the contacts with Asket must be interrupted here. The reason for that is that I can no longer locate the old reports from the year 1953, 1964, as I have obviously hidden them too well. Should I no longer be able to find them, then I will have to discuss with Simyase what should be done. Therefore, I will try to come into contact with her in order to ask her.